call the city council meeting for the city of Statesboro to order. Today is May 19th, 2020. The time is now 5:30 p.m. We will have our invocation and pledge of allegiance by Councilman Phil Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor. Will you please bow your heads? Dear Lord, I want to thank you for this day. And thank you for giving us all the opportunity to be here, and thank you for giving the mayor and council the opportunity to serve our great city. I want to say thank you for all the essential workers and all the medical professionals who are out in the world keeping us safe and getting us through this crisis. I want to thank you for keeping this community and our citizens safe, and for the most part, keeping the tragedy of this crisis away from our community. Please be with us today and help us to make decisions that benefit all of our citizens, move this community forward, and help be with us, help the mayor and council as we continue to develop a positive working relationship, so that way we can move this community forward. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move down to recognitions and public presentations. We have a presentation of a proclamation recognizing May 17th to the 23rd of 2020 as National Public Works Week. And the proclamation reads as follows. A proclamation by the Mayor and City Council of Statesboro, Georgia, National Public Works Week proclamation, May 17th through 23rd, 2020. The rhythm of public works. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Statesboro. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is the public interest of the citizens, civic leaders, and children of the city of Statesboro to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest in understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2020 marks the 60th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association, be it now resolved. I, Jonathan McCullough, Mayor of the City of Statesboro, do hereby designate the week, May 17th through the 23rd, 2020, as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association, and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause to be affixed the seal of the city of Statesboro on this 19th day of May, 2020. And Jason?
John is here.
Oh, there he is. You hide from me, John?
Y'all gonna take a picture after the meeting?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give this to him now. Here you go, John. The social distancing thing is tough on some.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you to our public works.
Absolutely. There are some true unsung heroes. Definitely. I can't say enough about what this team does. They are really Johnny on the spot. I'll say that. Extremely proud to work with them.
We have the best workforce in the state.
Yeah, you're right about
I
that.
think we got the best workforce in the state.
And I think they got us spoiled a little bit.
They do, you're right.
Yeah. Just a little bit. We'll move down to agenda item 4, public comments. Lee, are there any public comments?
No, Mayor.
Okay. All right, we'll move down to agenda item 5, which is consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is approval of minutes from the April 21st work session, as well as the May 5th first meeting council meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, we'll move down to agenda item 6, which is a public hearing of first reading and consideration of a motion to move forward with ordinance 2020-03, ordinance revising chapter 6 of the Statesboro Code of Ordinances regarding temporary special events permits found in section 6-8D3. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Kane, if you will.
Mayor and Council, there's a red line version of 6.8D3 in the agenda packet. What I did is based on what I heard at the work session, just put this together. So there are revisions in subsection A. A temporary permit to sell alcoholic beverages may be issued for a period not to exceed 3 days for an approved special event. The applicant must make complete application and pay all required application fees to the city clerk for his or her designee at least 21 days prior to the start date of the proposed event, and shall be required to comply with all general alcohol ordinances. They must also obtain a state-issued temporary special event permit. B is an entirely new subsection. That one states that for events with fewer than 200 people, for events with fewer than 200 total people present, any business holding an occupational tax certificate in a Bullitt County jurisdiction, what that means is either City of Statesboro, Brooklyn Register Portal, or Bullitt County may apply for these events if there are fewer than 200 people total going to be present. For events with more than 200 total attendees present, only businesses holding a city-issued catering license may apply. Regardless of event size, only 8 temporary special event permits shall be issued to any entity during a 12-month period. The rest of the ordinance remains the same, and I do want to just make a couple comments on the remaining provisions. It states that the holder of these events does have to comply with every one of these conditions that come in subsection C, formerly subsection B, which is everything below this, such as they have to meet all the criteria about approval from the police, must be zoned properly, the application has to be brought before council, each employee has to have TIPS training, a code enforcement officer or a chief of police may immediately revoke the temporary license. The applicant indemnifies and holds the city harmless from any and all claims, and an application fee set.
Okay. All right, and then I do want to make, I do want to be clear, this still do require them to have the insurance.
It does.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you, Ken. All right. All right, is there anyone here to speak for this request? All right. Is there anyone who wants to speak against this request? All right. Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any discussion by council?
Yes, I would like to, in order to see how it's gonna affect people, is there any way I can get an example of, somebody under 200 having a catering, as opposed to someone who already has a license, let's say Al Chapman, we use him.
Mhm.
We use him as a standard all the time. Let's say Al Chapman is gonna, cater an event, under 200 or over 200, I'd like to see both if we could. And then, let's just say a regular citizen, which is what this is about, right?
Yeah, well.
And how much would they have to
No,
pay?
it's business. Is
Business
any? a
But
business-
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
a business like let's say,
Frills and Fancies. Frills and Fancies wanted to do something.
Okay. Can I have an idea of how much Frills and Fancies would have to pay? And what, and the stuff, the hoops that they would have to go through. And I want to compare those with the loops that, Al Chapman would have to go through. I just want to see the difference,
There would not be any difference on what code provisions they would have to abide by.
Right. I guess what I'm thinking is, costs like, Al pays thousands of dollars a year, just for alcohol fees. So I'd like to know if, Frills and Fancies, if they were to, do this one-to-one event, how much would it cost them? And, does that make sense?
Well, that's an entirely mayor and council decision to set those application fees. If you want to set them differently for these smaller events, that would go, y'all could do it by resolution at this point, and then it can be adopted into the schedule of fees and times.
Well, right now, what would it cost? The same as somebody else. So
We've not had an application, so we have not, the resolution for the application fee has not been brought forward, so that is still to be determined.
And that's typically done, whether it's passes or not, is if it's passed, then we set the fee schedule after that and then bring back the resolution, or do we pass that simultaneously?
What we would do is y'all would just need to pass how much y'all want to pass the fee, and then it would be the application fee, not the fee to hold the event. We would just put it all in the application fee up front. I wouldn't think we do a separate one for the same way we do it for open container exemptions, is they just pay the application fee. They don't actually pay a fee if upon approval.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear on this. This is so somebody with an occupational tax certificate, which is anything from a barber to an accountant to, everybody's got an occupation, every business has an occupational tax certificate, correct?
Correct. Well, anyone that is conducting business and then has employees here, yes.
Yeah, I hear you. So that being said, if I want to, as a business, if I got a real estate firm or whatever, and I want to have a party with 200 people and 199 people, if I don't sell alcohol, I don't need a permit, do I?
That's correct.
So this is only for folks businesses that are not license holders, alcohol license holders, to sell alcohol at an event.
Yes, it's for outright sales and for in-kind transactions like soliciting donations or charging admission. Any sort of in-kind purchase of alcohol would factor in that. And this would be for locations that are not licensed to have alcohol sales conducted.
Mr. Penny?
Now, I was just gonna say, to try to address your question, that I think it'd be sort of hard to do it today, but before the next meeting, I think we could brainstorm and put some examples together, to provide council, before at the next meeting. I think we could do that.
Please, that would be wonderful.
I think we'll do that.
I hate to say I need to go at third grade and have visual aids, but
But
it'll help. Trust me,
Yeah,
it'll help.
yeah.
I also think, we should, if we're gonna, if this does pass, I think we already need to know what, fees are. Because I would hate to pass it and then, anyway, I think those two go together. I think you can take them apart.
We can do that.
Will you look that up for us and, give us some good ideas?
We can do that.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion by council?
How will we somebody who serves at this kind of an event would have to be trained, tip serve?
That's correct.
How do we, now the chief can do, or not necessarily chief, but our police department can go through and, restaurants that have licenses have all this stuff documented with their insurance. So is this something that they have to submit with their application, or in other words, what would be the administrative process for processing this application?
I believe they have to have server cards on their, bouncer cards have to be on possession at the time. But as far as tips training, it would either be an application or even just police or code compliance could check as the event is occurring to ensure that servers have their tips training documented.
Again, I would like to have all of that in a package, and we will share that with you at the next meeting. I wouldn't want to try to give you a definitive answer, but we'll work with the chief, work with the city attorney, even any of the departments that are involved. We will lay out the full process, and we'll talk about what we believe those fees ought to be, and we'll present that to council in the packet for the next council meeting.
Any further discussion by council?
So does that mean that this first reading goes forward, or does it mean that we're making enough revisions that we start over next time?
Well, we don't have enough information if we don't know what the fee is.
That's what I'm asking. So this is not gonna be the first reading to approve, it's gonna be, we'll start over next time?
Yeah, is this a start over moment?
Well, typically, the fees and, the fines and fees are not set out in the ordinance. We don't have dollar figures in
Yeah.
chapter 6. Typically, the setting of the fees would be
That's
via
an administrative function.
resolution.
Yeah, resolution. That's what I said in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would need to be done would, this could be voted on as is, since we just don't have fees set out in chapter 6 anywhere, not
Yeah.
really. I could do a separate resolution setting the application fees to be brought forward at the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as it says now, though, it says that every employee shall be required to possess valid server certification pursuant to chapter 6. If we put something in there along the lines of you must have in their possession
Person.
on their person during the event, that would be an administrative tweak that probably wouldn't require reverting back to first reading at the next meeting,
Okay,
if y'all decide to move forward.
okay. Thank you, Kane. Any further discussion by council? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to move forward for a second reading?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
No, nay.
so is that 4-1?
Mhm.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 7. Public hearing of first reading and consideration of a motion to move forward with ordinance 2020-04, ordinance revising chapter 6 of the States Road Code of Ordinance regarding open container found in section 6-17D. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Kane, if you will.
Mayor and council, this is a proposed ordinance revision. It would be an add-on to 617D. I apologize, but on the ordinance on here, it does say 617J. That has been changed on my drive to 617D. This is where this would, actually, it would be in J. It is correct as written, which is the second subsection down there. It's incorrect on the agenda memo because it will go into 617D, J. But, so, as we discussed at work session, the boundaries as set out here are up on the screen with the northern boundary of the proposed exemption zone being Proctor, Simmons Way, and Portland, with the eastbound, bound on the east by Mulberry, bound on the south by Cherry Street. But what we had discussed in work session was expanding the zone along MLK down to Bullock, and just having it loop in so it gets that point on.
West District.
So it encompasses all of West District.
Yeah, one point.
I can get that drawn up for first reading at the next council meeting. I think this is a substantive enough change that we would need to revert back to first reading
Okay.
at the next council session. So as proposed by y'all at the work session, we would change the bounds so that it would include all of the West District. There are also provisions in here about how the open container zone would work, and I do want to see if there's any council input and make sure everything on it is correct. I'm obviously going to change the boundaries on it to reflect the work session, but any on-premises licensee located within this area may sell alcoholic beverages in a paper or plastic cup for removal from the premises, provided, however, that the alcoholic beverage is not placed in a can, bottle, or other glass container, further provided that the licensee may dispense no more than one alcoholic beverage of each person, and no person shall remove more than one alcoholic beverage from the licensed premises. That is exactly as the Savannah ordinance is written. Any alcoholic beverage dispensed pursuant to this section shall not exceed 16 fluid ounces in size, and no person shall possess an open container containing an alcoholic beverage unless contained in a plastic or paper cup not to exceed that volume within the downtown exemption zone.
Okay, my only suggestion for modification would be to change that to 20, not 16.
Okay.
20 is kind of the standard red solo cup
Yeah, okay,
size.
let's kind of stick to the quorum, and we'll get to the council comments. All right, thank you, Ken. Is there anyone to speak for this request? All right, is there anyone here to speak against the request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so Councilman Boyd?
Sure, yeah, close the meeting, Yes.
Your statement.
Oh, you want, I thought I already said, yeah, I just want to change that to 20. That's kind of the standard red solo cup size, and you know what I mean?
I haven't been.
Not that they're gonna use red solo cups, but, yeah, that's just a standard size.
Yeah, I don't know.
I do.
I got it. If that 20 is okay, I'll present that along
So
with the boundary.
I'll put myself up
Council.
as an expert
That's fine.
then.
Council.
So yeah, 20
20 is fine.
20 ounces.
Y'all
Yeah,
fine?
yes, that 20 is fine.
All right.
So I'll change the bounds.
Not gallons,
change the size,
ounces.
and we'll bring it back.
Any further discussion by council?
Can I get a copy of that now?
Of course, I'll be glad to. Do you want me to send it to you as is or the revised? I'll send it to all of y'all as soon as I get it from IT.
And so just as a point of information as far as protocol, do I need to ask for a motion to move forward for a first reading with the amended map, or is it?
Just close the hearing, Mayor.
Just close it,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right, any further discussion by council? Seeing that there's no further discussion by council, we will close line item, what is that, 8? 7, I'm sorry. All right, so with that said, we'll move down to agenda item 8, which is the public hearing of first reading and consideration of a motion to move forward with the ordinance revision of chapter 6 of the Statesboro Code of Ordinances by removing the restriction found in section 6-7I. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So,
Second.
All right. All right, all those in favor?
All right.
All those in favor?
aye.
Okay. All right, Kane.
Mayor, Council, this is an ordinance revision to remove it in its entirety, section 617I, which currently reads as follows: interest of public employees and officials prohibited. No license shall be granted to any city, state, or federal employee or official whose duties include the regulation or policing of alcoholic beverages or licenses or any tax collecting activities. The only thing before y'all today is whether to keep or remove that provision. If y'all want to tweak it, we can revert back to first reading, but that's what's before y'all.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone here to speak for this request? Is there anyone here to speak against this request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, open it up for council discussion. Any discussion by council?
So removing this puts us in line with the state.
I did a survey of jurisdictions throughout the state, and this is of course a home rule issue here. We didn't have this provision until the new ordinance came in place in August of 15, is that correct? Does that sound right?
Sounds right.
Yes, and so this was a new one that came in. I looked through, I did a survey, and so Athens-Clarke County prohibits public employees, and based on my reading and my understanding of the past is that a lot of our Chapter 6 comes from the Athens-Clarke County statute. So in Athens-Clarke County, the wording is exactly the same, except it says interest of public employees prohibited, whereas in ours, it says interest of public employees and officials. So it is slightly different. Also found Clayton County ordinance, they have a license restriction that says no elected or appointed official, employee or agent of the county directly or indirectly shall be a licensee. I could find no other prohibitions for this throughout the state. The City of Commerce actually has a section that where a government center, if a government center gets an alcohol license, then a government official or employee actually has to be the named licensee for that. So this is entirely council discretion on whether to continue or discontinue that ban on public officials and employees being able to get alcohol licenses.
So the state doesn't mandate it one way or the other.
Oh,
You can-
sure. Are we, yeah, we in there. I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry. It was my mistake. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the state doesn't set a rule about whether or not local people can do that. Local public officials are elected officials. The state doesn't say.
That's
You
true.
found a couple of places where they do have some, that apparently ours was modeled after before.
Right. The only other jurisdictions I found are Athens-Clarke County, which our ordinance is modeled on, and also Clayton County. There's no statewide prohibition against it. And it's an entirely home rule council discretion decision.
Okay.
Kane, I have a question. Do you see any conflict of interest with me voting on this?
I do not. I thought about it based on your comments at the prior meeting, but after going back and looking at it, I realized you were simply making an observation about that as a stylist, you were not able to get a low volume license. I've gone back, looked over the record. You've never applied or held an alcohol license in the city of Statesboro, and our conflict of interest ordinance actually says where the interest of the city official in the subject matter of a voter decision is remote or incidental, the city official may participate in the vote or decision and need not disclose the interest. This would be, if we extended this out, none of y'all would ever be able to vote on taxation issues. None of y'all would ever be able to vote on anything because you are residents and affected by it. However, if were you to apply, you would need to recuse yourself from the actual licensing hearing.
Okay.
But no, I do not see a conflict of interest under 2125 of the code of ordinances for Ms. Mack to vote on this.
And Kane, just to be clear, that would also, if somebody were to get a license after that point, then changing the license would be a conflict of interest for that particular.
That is the case, and I recall you, Councilman Boyd, doing that sort of recusal when you were managing Spring Hill Suites.
I have a question. Ms. Mack, I was participating remotely last time. What were you, tell me what you said last week? You were talking about your.
I had made the comment that as a stylist, right now, I wouldn't be able to serve wine to my clients because I'm on city council.
Are you giving it to them or selling it to them?
Right now, I'm not doing either.
Would you sell it or give it to them?
I don't know.
That's according to
I
what you
haven't
said.
thought, I didn't think about it, but I just was using that as an example to say, I am a business owner and I am on city council, and right now I cannot give or sell wine to my clients if I wanted to.
So business owners are allowed to provide wine to overage people, but in order to sell it, you have to have a license, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, if she wanted to give champagne away,
She can.
So I can give champagne away.
You can.
I want this to be on record.
You
Okay.
may.
Exactly.
I would like a 10 o'clock appointment.
I'm gonna go with it.
Fix myself.
So with that being said, are there any other questions by council or any more discussion by council?
Yeah, double check, just to double check, Ms. Mack, if she did apply for an alcohol license and was given it, would she have to recuse herself from voting on anything alcohol, or just or just her alcohol application?
I think if there's a strong enough nexus between the matter that's being presented and her, if it's something that's if it's something specific, I know Councilman Boyum, his was about an open container in the lobby area or something along those lines.
It was a ridiculously minor thing.
But it was extremely connected to your business.
No, actually, it wasn't quite that. And we were just talking about the alcohol ordinance, but because the changes in the alcohol ordinance had some effect on the tiny amount of alcohol that we were selling there, in Alvin's view, that was still a conflict of interest.
Right.
Because as a license holder, I'm modifying the alcohol ordinance, so I was able to discuss and put in my input, but I was not able to, or I did not vote.
That's probably the best course of action moving forward, were you to.
Well, just to get everyone panties out of a bunch, I have no plan on getting an alcohol license.
Do you plan on giving away free champagne?
Have a mimosa.
www.theglambarsalon.com.
Any other discussion by council?
My only thought, Mayor, was that you had mentioned that somebody who's got a city alcohol license can't run for county office, they couldn't run for federal office, so, if we want to take those considerations out, we could just modify this and take state and/or federal, those two words out, we could leave it the same. And then that still doesn't put us in a situation where we're putting the police chief in a position where he's having to enforce an alcohol law on us, who then has, but that's just me. I like a nice, clean separation between legislative and administrative, and so just due to the past, I realize we've got good people up here. That's not the point, but I'm just one of five. So.
All right, so Kane, I do have a series of questions to ask you. As I understand it, this was not, a person that owned a restaurant and had an alcohol license could serve on the council without any conflict up until March of 2016, is that correct?
We have not been able to find any prior ordinances that prohibit.
Okay,
It's
so.
My understanding, no.
So it was absolutely fine for that to be the case, okay? All right, so in March 2016, this ordinance was passed, and so for the past 4 years, this ordinance has been in place, which prohibits a license being held by this elected body. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and any individual that has a license inside the city of Statesboro, this prohibits from them for running for elective office at local, state, and federal levels, and maintain that license at the same time.
They could run, but they would have to surrender.
They would have to surrender their license.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, and so that means that, we're not gonna pick on Al this time. We'll pick on Darren in the back right there with the clubhouse. So Darren Van Tassel, at this point in time, if he decided to run for state representative, he would have to surrender his license for his business in order for him to be able to do so.
Right, it would not be able to be renewed
Mhm.
on July 1st, because that would be a grant of a license on July 1st.
Okay, and so the next point that I wanted to point out, and this is a question for Leah. Leah, as I understand it, there are currently 81 license holders inside of the city of Statesboro, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so those 81 individuals, that whether they're singular in ownership or whether they have partners, at least a minimum of those 81 people cannot run for state, and I'm following back over you, they cannot run for or hold an office and maintain that license within our city.
That's correct.
Okay.
But
All right.
if I may, as a point of clarity there, that's only if we leave the two words state or federal in there. If we take those two words out, now you can run for state office, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And so, and do we need to take out, can they run for county commission?
They cannot currently.
So they currently cannot run for county commission.
Does that fall under state? Because it doesn't say county.
State is, the county is a political subdivision.
Fair enough.
So my reading of it would be that would be, yeah, because the general idea here is to prohibit all public officials
Mhm.
from having licensure.
Yeah, okay. All right, and so my next question is that across the state, and I want to understand this clearly, we were able to find that Clayton County had an ordinance where they prohibit this, correct?
Just for county.
Just for the county, okay?
Yes.
And then, so we have Athens Clark, that has an ordinance that's similar to this, is that correct?
It's similar, but there's a major difference in it. The Athens-Clarke County just prohibits employees of Athens-Clarke
Mhm.
County, whereas ours goes beyond, or not just employees of Athens-Clarke County, employees of any county, state, or federal jurisdiction.
Okay. All right, and so Clayton County, that's a county government, correct?
That's correct.
Athens Clark, that's a consolidated government, correct?
Correct.
Okay, the city of Statesboro is the only municipality in the state of Georgia of the 530 some odd cities that has this law into its law. Is that correct?
I can't say that unequivocally. I can say those were the only three I found through multiple searches, and I spent a long time, and those were the only three I could pull up.
Okay, and so, would it be safe to say that this is not a common practice?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so absolutely not. In the state of Georgia, this is not a common practice.
Not at all. I mean, I've Albany, Savannah, Valdosta, Warner Robins, those are the ones I typically look at for guidance, just
Mhm.
because they have longstanding city attorneys and managers, and their
Mhm.
ordinances look pretty good for the most part. And of course, none of those four have the prohibition. I would say that Statesboro is an outlier
Okay.
in this realm.
Okay, and so would I be wrong to say of the 530 some odd plus municipalities in the state of Georgia, the city of Statesboro may be the only one, or if not a member of a very few?
I think that's a safe statement.
That's a safe statement. Okay, my recommendation to council is for this to be repealed back to what the state mandates. That's what my recommendation to council would be, to move forward for a second reading. So, any discussion by council in regards to the recommendation?
Yes, if we were to, we would just repeal this, never was here. And, I want to open a restaurant, get an alcohol license. Like I said, then I could run, without that, I could still run it on a business selling alcohol. But when it comes up to voting on alcohol, would I have to abstain from every vote that had to do with alcohol?
Ones that's just pertinent to your area. For example, if you own a bed and breakfast and it was a package sale situation, my assumption is that would not be a conflict of interest, would it?
I think that's too remote and incidental at that point.
Okay.
Explain it to me again,
So-
when you say
So,
it's in my area.
for example, if you open up an Airbnb, right, and then it came before council, and this is the other piece that I want to address too, and it came before council, And so let's just say, we'll pick on Cindy. Cindy came before council and she didn't work for the city anymore. Don't take that, Cindy. She's going to open up her spot where she sold packaged beer and wine and stuff like that. You could still vote on that because that has nothing to do with your industry. Now, if another Airbnb came before and there was a vote on that, then he would not be allowed to vote on that. Is that somewhat accurate?
I think it's gonna have to be on a case-by-case basis
Okay.
to determine just how tight the connection is and see if there is a substantial enough conflict that would prohibit the elected official. I think the safe way to go about it would be if there's even a possibility that
Yeah.
it could affect you to recuse.
Okay.
You mean I would recuse myself or automatically I can't vote? I got to vote.
I think it would be a recusal and state the reason for the recusal. And that's how Councilman Boyd had conducted himself.
What if I didn't recuse myself and I voted?
You can't vote if you recuse yourself. It doesn't count.
When the 6 of us are gone, who's gonna be up here? What, might be 6 alcohol, place owners.
Yeah.
Technically, if I'm not mistaken, the recusal is more of a ethics consideration than a legal consideration. I do not believe I am legally obligated not to vote. It is an ethical conflict of interest. We are a city of ethics, so operating ethically is appropriate. But if I'm not mistaken, if I want to vote on it, I can vote on it. It's a little squirrely and it doesn't look good, but you can do it. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, section 2125, that conflict of interest is in our code of ethics, but it is pretty clear that it's not the city official should not participate in a voter decision. It's the city official may not participate in a vote or decision on a matter affecting a person, entity, or property in which the official has a substantial interest. So it wouldn't be able to own a decision that directly affects substantially
Yeah, well,
their interest.
I would like to believe that the people would elect people of that ethical standard, that they would recuse themselves from a situation like that.
I would certainly hope so too.
Yeah, that's what I
But
hope so.
we haven't had some ethical people on this.
Yeah, I
In the last
know.
couple of
We're
years.
looking forward. We're looking forward.
I know we are, I know.
We're looking forward.
But-
Yeah.
but I
Have you looked at Congress?
If I had to say, if all, when all of us
I'm telling you.
Sorry, I don't buy that one.
Yeah, if there was a cross that we carried the cross of days past.
I think under that situation where you did have that many alcohol owners up here, it would need to be some sort of
Yeah.
spin off a lot of these
Yeah.
duties and decisions to the administrative
And
side
so,
like we discussed.
yeah, and so, and that kind of, and if we will, let's close this and then, because I do want to make a point on this in a second. So with that being said, I'm sorry, Mr. Penn.
Mayor, excuse me, Chief Broadhead wanted to make one comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just for your consideration, as you're looking at this change in ordinance, I would ask you to continue to specifically prohibit city police officers from having alcohol licenses in the city limits. I think ethically, that's too much of a problem for us on the enforcement side, and so I've asked that, as you rewrite that, if you choose to do that, that you continue to specifically prohibit the police from having a license.
Thank you for bringing that up.
That makes sense.
Another, if you don't mind, just one other issue.
Go ahead.
I have with this, found a bar or a restaurant serves alcohol. Somebody gets rowdy. Police have to come in. And obviously, they're gonna feel, you know, this is city council, and this
Some
guy
kind of way.
signs on my page. It could affect the way that they address the problem.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chief?
It's a problem, we're gonna work through it. My expectations is officers are gonna enforce the law fairly across the board, regardless of the person involved.
Yeah.
If we need to call a state officer to come take care of something to keep that line from getting crossed, we'll do that.
Yeah. And then I just fundamentally believe that if 530 some odd cities can get this right, we can do it too. You know, so you know, I just fundamentally believe that, you know, and I can understand that this was a common practice, but it's just simply not. Go ahead, Sharon.
So my question is, how do we address the chief's concern? Do we still vote and move forward on removing this
amendment.
entirely and do something else, or do we modify? What's the best way?
Well, the one that is based on the Athens-Clarke County specifically covers what Chief Broadhead was discussing, but it would remove the prohibition for public officials. That's the add-on from Athens-Clarke County to ours that got added in translation along the way.
So how do we do it to make that happen?
Well, we do,
Just make
to
it-
make that happen, is just remove interest of public employees prohibited. And so you take out the "and officials" there, and then you take out the "or official" after employee here, so it would just read as follows: interest of public employees prohibited. No license shall be granted to any city, state, or federal employee whose duties include the regulation of policing of alcoholic beverages or licenses or any tax collecting activities. So just reverting back to what Athens-Clarke County has in their section 635D would cover that.
So we just take out the public employees, and we take out the officials, and that way elected officials can, but police officers can't.
That's correct, and I couldn't.
No public
And
employees.
also DOR agents couldn't, ATF agents could not.
Okay, and so let me ask this question, and it's because I'm entrepreneurial in thought. I can understand law enforcement being removed, but what if somebody works on sanitation?
They would not be involved in the regulation or
So they
policing
would
or
be
tax
fine.
collecting
Okay,
activities.
Okay, good deal. All right.
But as elected officials, with us having an alcohol ordinance,
Mhm.
y'all are going to vote on policing and regulation of
Mhm.
alcoholic beverages. That's
Yeah.
incumbent upon you.
Mhm.
So that, I think it's the way Athens covered it would take care of all that direct conflict of interest
Okay.
with public employees.
Okay. All right. And so do we just make do we have you move forward with it? Is this gonna go back to another first reading? Do we go to the second reading with the amendment? How do we proceed now?
It is a substantial change to what is presented, unless there's a huge rush and y'all want to waive formalities. I think it would be better to bring it back for first reading, and I'll just bring it back exactly like that Athens-Clarke County ordinance reads.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion by council, we'll close this out with the understanding that Kane will come back with the requested amendments. Okay. We'll close out line item 8 and then move on to agenda item 9. Agenda item 9 is a public hearing and consideration of a motion to approve application 520-0401. Josh Whitfield requests a variance from section 1509C, table 6 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance for the installation of one wall sign with a maximum height of 18 feet on .03 acres of property located at 19 Courtney Street within sign district 4 and the CBD district. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant, Whitfield Signs, is requesting a variance from Article 15, Section 1509C, Table 6 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance regarding the maximum allowable height. The applicant is proposing a sign with a height of 18 feet at this address, 19 Cortlandt Street. Section 1509C, Table 6 requires any sign affixed to a wall to be restricted to a maximum height of 12 feet. This location is currently operating as the divvy desk and has one wall sign and one suspended sign on the front elevation. The existing wall sign will be removed to ensure compliance with the ordinance. Signage as proposed will have no additional conflicts with the city ordinance. If I can direct your attention to the screens, we'll go over location, proximity, and some graphics associated with this request. So this is the aerial view showing where the location of the subject property is, downtown on Cortlandt Street. This is an image of the front elevation of the business, adjacent structures in around 19 Cortlandt Street. This is the proposed front elevation with the sign. That's another existing sign which is in conformance with the application. So staff recommends approval of this variance pursuant to the conditions of the staff report included in the agenda packet, and the planning commission recommended approval unanimously by 6-0 vote at the regularly scheduled meeting on May 5th, 2020. I'll take any questions you may have regarding this application.
Thank you, Jason. Is there anyone here to speak for this request?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you will, state your name.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Justin Pay. I'm the owner of Divvy Desk. I just wanted to start by saying that in a time where jobs are a bit uncertain right now, the members of Divvy Desk are really thriving. We have several different marketing groups and PR companies in there that every company is trying to get their digital stamp out right now. And so where some people might not be able to go to work, these members have been in and out quite often the past couple of months. And so I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have about the variance.
Okay. All right, thank you. And if council have a question, they'll call.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there anyone here to speak against this request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, council, any discussion? All right, seeing that there's
I
no.
just have one question for, or comment for Justin. Congratulations on your recent engagement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all I had to say.
Well, that's good stuff.
Happened yesterday or this weekend?
Saturday.
That's Saturday. Congratulations.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, it's a good thing you can find one to put up with
These
you.
are good
I'm
ones.
telling you.
That's must have been where that beard went. Can't be all scruffy when you ask somebody to marry you.
He's as weird as me.
That's good. So with that being said, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations
Thank
and
you.
congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, good deal. All right, we'll move down to agenda item 10. Public hearing, consideration of a motion to approve application SE 20-04-02, where Bert requests a special exception for section 401I of the Statesboro zoning ordinance to establish a group daycare in R-20 district as a home occupation on .73 acres of property located at 109 Christie Lane. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Applicant and property owners requesting a special exception from Article 4, Section 401I of the Statesboro zoning ordinance regarding home occupation provisions. The applicant is proposing a group daycare facility at her home to supervise approximately 10 children. Currently, the applicant is running a full-capacity family daycare home from this location, which is restricted to no more than 6 children at a time. A group daycare is defined in the ordinance as, quote, caring for at least 7 but no more than 18 children. So section 2704 specifies the requirements for all group daycares located within a residential dwelling and allows for city council to grant conditional uses approval of these provisions within a residential district. The subject property is located in the R20 single-family residential district, and there are no additional commercial uses in the immediate area. And if I can direct your attention to the screens, this is a proximity map of the location of this property. That is the home, subject home, and these are some adjacent residences to the applicant. This is a sketch of the property. So staff recommends approval of the special exception pursuant to the conditions of the staff report included in your agenda packet, and the planning commission recommended unanimous approval of the special exception 6-0 at the regularly scheduled May 5th, 2020 meeting. Take any questions you may have.
What district is that in?
One.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It's up in the Fletcher neighborhood.
Gotcha.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Jason.
Yes, sir.
All right, anyone here to speak for this request? Come. State your name.
Come up.
Hi,
Hey.
I'm Roberta Benike, and I'm the owner of the daycare. And y'all can tell I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous.
But I'm here to
And that's
answer
the
any
business,
questions
girl.
that you may have.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, if council has any questions, we'll do it in a moment. So just grab a quick seat. If you have any questions, we'll follow up with you, but don't be nervous.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone here to speak against the request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll open up to council discussion.
So Kane, is this to allow from 6 to 10, or is this to allow 16?
217.
I think it's between 6 and 17 is what the variance or the exception would allow for. So it could be classified, correct? That's correct. So it would be for up to 17.
Yeah. How big is that house? I'm sorry, I can't see the.
Page 34, item 5 has this square footage bill.
Thanks.
It says it's 2396.
That's correct. 2396.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Bill, is that all you have?
Go ahead.
Excuse me, what's your name again?
Roberta.
Roberta, how many children would you allow for? Or do you want to allow up to?
It's gonna be up to 10, and like, if you can look at the end, we already converted our garage into the daycare. And we are in the process of adding, what was the measurement? 25 more feet. We're gonna do an addition on there, so that we can, because I have both infants and toddlers, so I want to separate the two, because my infants who are in the process of walking, the toddlers don't understand, to not run them over. So we are in the process of, like, that little driveway, we done had it cleared out. We're gonna make because we're like right at the county line, so we're in the process of having that driveway to where the parents can safely come in as well as go out. So there are things that we're doing to hold up to the amount of kids that I'm requesting, and I'm requesting it because I have a few parents that is starting a family but afraid to have more kids because they wanted safety, and they fell in love with me. So now one of my parents actually found out 26 weeks that she's pregnant, and she was nervous, but I actually told her, I said, well, we're in the process of being able to, and I have 2 licensed employees that helps out, like, so that I don't go over my ratio, but with the reason it to be by the state, by the guidelines.
Right.
That I have my staff to ratio.
But as of right now, you want to move your occupancy level up to 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Could it ever go to 16?
No. Well, it, whatever God placed in my path is where it's going to. Do I have intentions right now? No, ma'am. I am just wanting to, for my parents that I do have now, that want to have another child or 2, I'm looking at 10, no more than 12. And the only reason I say 12 is because of the ratio of 6 to 1.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay?
Thank you. Any further discussion by council?
Nobody's complained to you about this at all,
Where
Phil?
your folks at, Phil?
No, I mean, and they continue to be concerned with the traffic through that area. I mean, even our own city trucks roll through that neighborhood, and they end up with trash. The all green trash trucks go through there. I mean, so they unfortunately get a lot of traffic of people coming up Matthews Road and cutting off trying to. So I know traffic is a big issue. It sounds like you're just looking to add expanded families as opposed to additional clients, so.
Yes, sir. And I myself also, before I visit Mayor Jonathan, to try to, I done had them to the city. They came out, they put, inter-city limits, they actually posted new speed limit signs. It was actually dark out there, so the city done since then came and placed a light for the safety of my parents coming in and out. So I've been working on getting, the speeding, kind of slowed down, because coming out of the county into the city, there was an issue. But the city has gone out and placed several signs and several new signs. So I've been addressing that before I even came to this point.
Thank you.
That's correct. We have been working with the applicant and
Oh, yeah, I
county
know.
on this matter.
So when I saw the name, I was like, yeah, I know.
That's right.
Absolutely, so there you go. And stay sport, your mayor actually works a little bit, so.
That's right.
Yeah. And my definition of working is picking up the phone and calling Jason and Mr. Penny.
That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. And this is just another great example of what Public Works does. I think this is a very fitting time. Any further discussion by council? All right. With that being said, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing that there is none, we'll move down to agenda item 11, which is consideration of a motion to approve a development agreement with JGR Development, allowing an additional $500,000 intermediate reimbursement from the TAG Special Fund for installation of public infrastructure within the old registered TAG. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, members of the council, at the last meeting, you approved an addendum to the agreement with JGR. And so what we're coming back for tonight is simply to ask you to allow us to do one additional reimbursement. The way it's currently set up, it's only set up for 3 reimbursements. We've already done 2. The developer has already incurred some additional costs that could potentially be reimbursed. And since we added the cost for the intersection, we'd like to add one additional reimbursement so that we could reimburse the developer. And that's what the request is tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Penny.
And we recommend it to you.
Okay. All right, any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's no discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's show that agenda item 11 has passed. We'll move down to agenda item 12, which is consideration of a motion to approve a change order with Motorola Solutions Incorporated for the dispatch console project to include proper grounding of police headquarters.
Mayor, members of council, several months ago, we came to you to approve the purchase of the consoles for the police department and some additional wiring and that needed to occur. But we also, one of the issues, we're upgrading the radio consoles. However, the police department had been struck by lightning.
Yeah.
And what we found is that it wasn't necessarily properly grounded. And so what this additional $18,000 will do, it will protect our investment of almost $60,000. And so we're requesting the change order so that we can add the $18,571 to ensure that the building is grounded to protect our investment. So we recommend approval of the change order to you, Mayor.
Any discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Leah, God bless you.
Sorry, Lee.
It's all good, you're doing great.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 13, consideration of a motion to approve the purchase of 9 PLCs with control panels, hardware, and installation from Revere Control Systems Incorporated in the amount of $86,500 with funds approved in the 2020 capital improvement budget item WWD-176. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, members of the council, this is a sole source purchase for some programmable logic controllers. And the reason we need these, we have a system and we utilize our SCADA system at the waste treatment plant. But this equipment can be upgraded by changing out these controllers.
Okay.
Currently, we can't update our equipment because the technology is behind. And so by approval of the expenditure of $86,500, we'll be able to upgrade our equipment with these 9 controllers. And so we recommend that you award the contract and approve the purchase of these controllers for wastewater.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. Any discussion by council?
Just to educate me and to clarify, this is within the budget, it's not an extra expenditure, it's just the reason it comes to council is because it didn't go out for bid, it's a single source?
Well, it comes to council because of the amount of the purchase, and it is included in the budget, but even though it's included in the budget, when we make large expenditures, normally we would bid that out, and in this case, it's a sole source, so that we stand with the manufacturer. We will still come to council and get your permission to spend those funds.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any further discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in
With
favor?
attitude.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 14. Consideration of a motion to award a professional services contract to Wood Engineering in the amount of $58,000 for design, bidding, and construction oversight services for a new compressed natural gas filling station with funds approved as part of the 2020 capital improvement budget item, NGD-5A. Mr. Penny.
And Mayor, members of the council, in 2013, we purchased, I think it was a previously used compressed natural gas dispenser, and we need to upgrade that. And so we have included in our capital improvement budget to replace that compressed natural gas system because of we have garbage trucks and some other equipment that operates on natural gas, and this is how we fill those vehicles so they can operate. And so what we're recommending to you is that we award a contract to Wood for the design and engineering and the installation of that piece of equipment. Once they get all the specs out, get it bid out, and then they will get also supervise the installation of that equipment. Now, we'll say this cost is $58,000, but we have budgeted over $500,000 for the replacement of that station. But we do recommend that you award this bid tonight.
Thank you. All right, any discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we move down to agenda item 15, which is consideration of a motion to set the date for a public hearing for the city of Statesboro fiscal year 2021 budget. Mr. King.
Mayor, members of council, we have the process where we have to adopt the budget, and tomorrow you're going to start receiving, have work session on our 2020-21 budget. After you finish your review of the budget, then we have to, by law, we're required to have a public hearing. And so what we're recommending to you, you have to adopt the budget before the end of June. And so what we're recommending is that you have a public hearing. It could be the first meeting in June, but because our meetings are at 9 o'clock in the morning, we recommend that we have a meeting at 5:30 in the afternoon on June 9th so that the public can attend if they'd like to.
Okay.
So you would have, but that would be the only item on the agenda. But the public hearing for the budget will be on June 9th, if you do that.
Thank you, Mr. Benton. Any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
We're approving June 9th at 5:30?
Yes.
Will we have that meeting in the morning or no? Just.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have the, we
Will
will
we have
the
two meetings that day?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You
No.
have your meeting on
Yes.
June 2nd
Oh, okay.
at 9
Oh,
o'clock.
the 9th is I'm sorry.
The 9th will
Yeah.
just be the public hearing on the budget. So you're gonna have 3 meetings in June, I'm sorry.
All right, I said we had the,
I so moved
is
it.
there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry.
All right, is there, cause y'all got me messed up. All those in favor?
All right.
All right, yeah.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go. All right, and so we'll move down to agenda item 16, which is consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2020-15, a resolution establishing the lost loan reserve fund for the benefit of the Statesboro Small Business Recovery Fund, and to appropriate $250,000 in the city enterprise fund to the loan loss reserve fund. Mr. Petty.
Mayor and members of the council, what this item is about, after COVID-19 hit, the thought was, is there something that the city can do to assist small businesses as they recover from the pandemic and being shut down and being able to get their business going? And so what we proposed and shared with you in previous memos was the idea that Statesboro doesn't have, we don't have the resources like an Atlanta, that we have probably billions of dollars of a budget that we could pool, that we could actually grant funds. We don't have that luxury. But what we do have is we have the ability to utilize city funds to establish what we call a loan loss reserve. And what the loan loss reserve does is used to try to entice financial institutions to make loans to small businesses in our community that are recovering from the pandemic. And so what we're proposing to you tonight is that you would establish the loan loss reserve, and you would establish this program. And if you establish the program, then we would need to come back to you with more detailed guidelines on how that would work. But what you would do, and for the public that's listening tonight, for $250,000 that hopefully we will never spend, we would leverage 4 times that amount in loans to small businesses. So for $250,000, you could secure about $1 million in loans for small businesses. And the way we've written this up is a bank would loan a small business up to $25,000. The only time that money would come into jeopardy if one of those loans becomes delinquent or becomes bad. So basically what the city would be doing is, in order to get the banks to make the loan, they would serve as a backstop. But the exposure to the city is $250,000 in order to get $1 million to flow in this community. And in this case, it would only be for businesses that were impacted by COVID-19 in the city, in Statesboro. And so that's what we're recommending to you tonight. We're not using tax dollars, we're using enterprise fund dollars. It would be from the water and sewer system and from the gas system. But basically, we would continue to hold the money. We don't send our money to anybody. There would be an agreement with financial institutions in order to set up that loan loss reserve, and they would qualify the individuals that would be applying for the loans. We wouldn't process any loans because we don't have the infrastructure. The only thing we would have is that loan loss reserve to entice the financial institutions to make loans to small businesses that might have a need in our community that were impacted by the pandemic.
All right, any discussion by council?
So this, oh, go ahead.
So in layman terms, and correct me if I'm wrong, we'd be serving as a co-signer?
Well,
Kind of.
we wouldn't be co-signing. We would basically, we would know when they made a loan,
Okay.
okay? And we would know who that loan might be for,
Mhm.
okay? because at that point, we would be on the hook
Okay.
just in case that loan went bad.
So the qualifications of the loan come strictly from financial institutions?
Yes.
Okay, so they approve or disapprove
Right.
the loan?
Right. And if it's not a good risk, they would not make the loan.
We're a loan guarantee, correct?
And it's essentially, yes.
And now, the city cannot make direct loans, as you stated. We can guarantee loans?
Under, the anti-gratuities clause says that we can't give money away.
Right.
However, if there is a specifically articulated benefit, that's what Georgia case law set out. If there is a specifically articulated benefit to the city, then the city can put out funds for that, such as contracting with United Way, the same way we contract with SCVB, that we're allowed to do that. And the specifically articulated benefit that would keep this from running afoul of the anti-gratuity clause is that we'd be guaranteeing these loans in order to ensure the continued operations and financial solvency of small businesses within the city in order to preserve the tax base, employment opportunities, and retail outlets and services available to city residents. And this would not be an actual outlay of funds. It would just be the loan loss reserve would serve to entice financial institutions to grant financing opportunities to businesses that might otherwise have difficulty in obtaining financial assistance for the COVID response.
So the enticement you mentioned is us guaranteeing the loan.
Right.
So if the business defaults, the bank doesn't need it, we pay the bank.
That's correct.
Right.
And do we pay them all the interest and stuff too, or how does that work?
That's
all the details?
That would all be in the details with the agreement with the financial institution, including what kind of interest rates would be acceptable and what kind of, what efforts they would make to recover the loan amount.
Right.
Even what kind of collateral might be required. Right now, a lot of banks don't even want to consider any unsecured debt. And so we should require as much collateral as we can as well to ensure that the loans can be taken care of.
Can we afford this?
I think you can, to set up the loan loss reserve. Again, our hope is that we don't have a loan that goes bad. And there's a desire that, again, for the policymaking board is for you to decide whether you want to try something different to help small businesses in the community. It's an opportunity to do this with this program. Have we seen programs like this done before? Yes. Have we seen them successful? Yes. We've seen this type of program used not for pandemics, but to help incent small businesses just to start. And one that I actually worked with, that we were able to actually get a business about a $300,000 loan by simply putting up about $25,000 worth of CDBG funds. And in the case of Statesboro, because we're not an entitlement community, we don't have CDBG funds that we can use that way. And so in this case, to utilize those, the enterprise fund and a small amount of 125. Again, we're not guaranteeing for $1 million. We're not guaranteeing $1 million. We're saying here's 250,000, and so the bank is still taking a great deal of risk in order to make a $25,000 loan. So if you looked at it that way, for $1 million, what you would have could be $10,000, $25,000 loans, and that would be the ceiling of our risk as a city of Statesboro.
I think that this is going to be a good thing for small businesses here going on with the COVID-19.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, this is manna from heaven. For us to be able, for our city to be able to do something like this, to work to save the businesses in our community, This is a very big deal. And we have been in discussion with Carver State Bank, who's excited about this particular opportunity to be able to provide funding. And the key thing that we do have to keep in mind is that this is specific to the businesses that's inside the city limit. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and we know that there is a need. We can see with the $2.2 trillion situation at the federal level, those funds was eaten up immediately, and many, and I repeat, many of our local businesses did not get a dime. We gotta take care of ourselves, Statesboro. We got to do what's best for us, and what's best for us is keeping our businesses open. So to be able to put up $250,000 that we may never spend, and to get $1 million opportunity, I think that's a tremendous opportunity for us. So with that being said, is there any more discussion by council?
Yeah, a quick question for Mr. Penny. So what are we doing here today? Because we don't have an agreement with the bank. We don't have the details of the loan payback. We don't have the percentages. We don't have any of that stuff. So what are we doing here specifically today? Because this clearly is not the complete agreement.
What you are approving is the guidelines for a program. And if you approve the guidelines, at the next meeting, we will bring the more detailed agreement with any of the banking institutions that want to participate in the program. But I didn't want to go out and try to negotiate an agreement with someone
Sure.
if the city is not interested in doing the program.
So we're being asked to decide whether to approve it in theory, and we still vote on the specifics if you
Yeah.
go forward
Yes.
with it?
Yes.
Okay, so I hear you say it all has to be negotiated, but do we have an idea about the term of these loans and how long the city would be?
Well, I think inside this document, what we said, we set it out for about 4 years. However, for a bank, I would say I wouldn't sit well if I had a 60-month loan and then you close the books on at 48 months. So then we also put in that document, as long as we have a loan that is being paid, but once it's all settled, then the program goes away. And it would only serve those that are impacted by the pandemic. But I will just simply say to council, this model is one that might also serve some other purposes in the community. So it would be a model that you see how it works. And if it works to a good degree, it might be one that might be even more, it might bear even more fruit down the road for small businesses in the community.
And then, Mr. Penny, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but the fruit that he's saying is that if we do this right, and we get this right, this is just not a COVID-19 recovery plan. This is an entire economic stimulus opportunity for years down the line. And so that means that gives our businesses the opportunity to be to have the opportunity to prosper. And so that it allows that doorway to some good things in the future.
That's not what we're voting on now, though, right now.
Oh, no, what we voted on now is basically is to say, okay, staff, go work it out, bring it back to us. If we like it, we pass it. If we don't, we fail.
Gotcha.
And it would establish the fund.
Yeah.
It would restrict, so we wouldn't be able to use those funds for anything else.
Okay.
And that's part of the requirement for tonight.
Okay.
Are we gonna open up, I hear you with Carver State Bank, but that's a Savannah. Are we gonna be opening that up to local banks? How are we gonna do that?
I'll answer that. We actually held a call with many of the local banks, and many of the local banks were not able to get the return. In short, they weren't willing to do it. All except for one, which was Morris Bank. Morris Bank did say that they would do it, but they did not want to go it alone. And so that's why you keep hearing the staff use the language financial institutions. So as we continue to put this together, I hope this would be a joint effort. But at the end of the day, I'm the first person to say I want to keep it local. But if local can't provide service, the people still need the help. And so with that being said.
My only point being that if they default, then we're taking city money and shipping it outside the community. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the goal is
I'm
for
not
them
good
not
with
to
that.
default. The goal is not for any,
I understand.
the goal is for them not to default. The goal is to save businesses.
Sure.
And so, you know, and just as a point of clarity, we gotta keep businesses' doors open. So even if Wells Fargo, if they came on board, that money's not staying in Statesboro, that's going to their financial headquarters. If we did it with any other bank, with Renaissance is here, but that bank is headquartered somewhere else. So most of the banks that's here are headquartered in other cities. So they're all going back to a corporation that's not here. What is here is our local businesses. And that's what we need to keep the doors open for.
I think if Carver Bank wanted to help us, they need to come here and be a local bank.
They want to.
Because that strikes me that none of our local banks wanted to help.
The Carver State is a community development financial institution. So the products that they're able to provide are much different. And so they have all kind of programs with the Department of Community Affairs and other entities that allow them to do so. To do programs like this. And so my thought process is that maybe the banks were not able to use some of those products. But of course, if they want to be a part of it, then absolutely.
My thing is, if we open this up to all of the banks here inside the city and they don't want to do it, I'm in agreement with the mayor.
Sure.
The businesses here can no longer suffer any longer.
Yeah.
We need to give them some sort of resources to reach out to help them. So we're opening this up, if I'm getting it right, to the local banks here in Statesboro to help in this project. But if they don't help, we have to get the help from somewhere.
Yeah.
Is that right, Mr. Penny?
Yeah.
That is correct. That is correct. And as the mayor stated, again, not just Carver, Morris Bank did say they didn't want to go along, and we're waiting on one other bank. And again, this discussion, and you approve this, you might see more folks come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was my thought, yeah. Is once they saw our commitment, then maybe they'll.
Right.
Yeah.
One more question. Clarify for me the last thing you said about, yes, we are committing the $250,000. We're agreeing in theory that we want to do this and authorizing you to go negotiate. But what if we can't come to terms with them? What were you saying about the money's already, once we vote today, the money's committed? The money's...
Well, no, as far as committed, you're setting it aside in our
For that
mind.
purpose.
But if we don't do a deal, it just goes away. I mean, and we're not shipping our money anywhere.
Yeah.
We retain our money. And the mayor and I have had this discussion quite a bit.
Yeah.
We won't fight anybody over our money. So we'll hold our money and we'll have agreements about how the loan fund works and even the kind of recovery efforts that they would make if the loan becomes delinquent.
Thank you.
Any further discussion by council?
It's $250,000 if you can save one
Yeah.
business is great.
Yeah,
But there are a lot of businesses out there that's not gonna last much longer.
yeah, trust me, I
And
know.
I know you do. We
Yeah,
all know.
I know.
We all know people.
Yeah, I know.
Who are struggling very bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And this
Yeah. So with that being said, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep, any opposed? All right, seeing that there is none, we'll move on to agenda item 17, which is other business from city council. Any other business? All right, seeing that there is none, we'll move on to agenda item 18, which is city manager comments.
Mayor, members of the council, a couple of things I wanted to just mention. Again, the budget work session is going to be held in the council chambers tomorrow evening. I think we posted it for Joe Brandon Hall, but if the public wants to come, we can accomplish social distancing by meeting in that location. So the meeting will be here tomorrow evening at 4 o'clock. Then the other thing, I just want to stress two more things. One, just want to remind you that on June 1st, our plan is to open City Hall and other public buildings to the public. But we will be establishing protocol for how we will allow the public to move through the building, enter the buildings, considering we still will be dealing with the pandemic. And so we will establish that protocol. And then the last thing I just want to mention, April, we started the census. And we need to continue to emphasize the need for people to make sure that they're counted. Because that is really important for shared revenues and things of that nature. And so I want to make sure that we don't let that one get by us. That's it there.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. We'll move down to agenda item 19, public comments. On the agenda, we have Ms. Alberta Deal. Is she present? Yeah.
I'm gonna do like Pelosi, I'm gonna take my mask off.
That's all right, that's all right.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, we appreciate you letting us be here.
Yes.
To hear us. We have a problem in our neighborhood with, of all things, the church. Now, this, we've been dealing with this, Mr. Mayor, since
14.
2014. This building is being rented and you use it as a church. And first of all, the Compassion Church was there. And they were very loud. And this building is not built to accommodate the modern sound systems that churches have today. And our house is right directly behind this church, you know. And we've asked the police, and we've had chief over there, and he was over there looking at it and everything. And we've been dealing with this problem for being too loud for all these
6 years.
6 years.
6 years.
And we came to ask you, and we came to city. This is about the second or third time we've been to city council. And we got a letter from the former city attorney saying that it would probably be a civil action. But I'm gonna let her talk now because
Let your wife talk.
she's got all,
I wrote it out, you know, I think you read it.
she's got all the stuff there that she wants to
I don't
tell
let
you.
him talk very often.
Good job.
But anyway, we're here with George and Alberta Deal. We live at 327 Donaldson Street. We're 80 years old. We have been dealing with this problem for 6 years, and it's at 410 South Zero Street. First of all, before I go into that, I want to tell you who we have contacted and talked to. Okay. Bill Boyd, we talked to him by mistake. We thought we were in section 1, but we were in section 3. Mrs. Mack's
Right here.
place.
I'm
Yeah,
Miss
I'm sorry,
Chayers.
there, okay.
I'm 2.
And thank you for talking to us.
course.
We've been to your ear for a little while, but we got some good information. Like you said, we talked to Chief, came to our place, sat down in my living room and talked with us. I thought that was just excellent, and thank you very much for doing that. Sergeant Bert was going to come. I think she probably got busy. This is a lady that he has appointed to come help us with this. She came to our house. She went to the church and talked to the pastor and the members there. And she was working with us to do several things, and I don't know what she was going to do tonight, but maybe later on we can find out. Okay, the next person we talked to was, sorry, I'm blind in one eye and I'm taking shots in the other one.
all
So-
good.
And he is blind in one eye and good on the other, but he's got to have an operation in one eye, so we're kind of.
It's okay.
Y'all look good.
The next one we talked to was Charles Brown and Jeremy from Code and Ordinance. Very nice. They came to my house with Sergeant Bert, looked around and everything, and Jeremy helped me with some other problems in the neighborhood, and I appreciate them very much. They were so kind. The next one was Justin Williams. This is another fine young man. Talked with me very well, and he was in code and ordinance before he moved to zone and planning. We talked to him in zone and planning, and he told me that he didn't know how this passed in 2014 when the Kennedys tried to make a church out of a tin building, seems like, you know. But he's very nice, and a lot of good tips he gave me. I'm gonna save the last two for a little while. There's one more, but I'll save the last one for a little while. We went to the the paint store on the corner of Zillow.
Sherwin-Williams.
Okay, we talked with him, and they have put a no parking in their place. No parking there. That and the computer business with that, no parking for the church at all. The next one is Bert, Howard Lumber Company. Now, Howard Lumber Company owns the railroad track from their part to Zillow. They've owned it for I don't know how many years. Okay. The parcel of land that is next to that belonged to 410 Zillow, but they sold it. The Kennedys sold it in 2005. It has not been with this place for a parking place since 2005. Okay. They have bought it, developed it in 2019, September. They are fixing to develop it. There is no parking in that space at all for the church, which was allotted, well, the Kennedys paid good money to the second man that bought it in 2008, good money to have parking space for the Compassion Church that they renovated the building for. The Compassion Church was playing in the Statesboro High School cafeteria, had to leave. So the kids got together, they did that. So I called Sue Starling, which was the city manager, and she said, well, all permits was passed. How did permits pass when this plot of land that they're sitting this church on has no parking? It has a pie-shaped place in front of it. That's the only parking that is with this church at this time. It was sold in 2005, it was sold in 2008, it was sold in 2019 to Howard Lumber, which is got no parking on it now. So this church that is sitting there has no parking spaces, all except the pie-shaped that is with it. Bill Boyum said when we were here in 2014 at City Council, why is there a church? There's no parking. Well, at the time I thought they had the part that it was sold now. Then I said they got the parking place across the street, which is not right now. They did not. It was sold. The Kennedys got together, like I said, with the Compassion Church to do this. Well, we came to City Council and the attorney, we had a meeting with the attorney and the officials from the church, and he said in a letter that since there was nobody coming forward but us, that it was a civil action that we would have to take. But the Kennedys called my neighbor, Mr. Moats, begged him not to say a thing about this church. Do not do anything. 40 years ago, I let you raise white bulldogs in the back of my place. Between the two is the easement. Do not say nothing. So Mr. Moats has not come forward, would not come forward to us to help us. We were on our own. The people next to him, several years ago, they have a son that wild big truck sitting in the front yard with the motor running, the radio blasting away, my windows shaking. Went up there to find out what was going on. He wouldn't talk to me, so I called the PD, and they came. Come to find out he was on marijuana. Came to find out they were growing marijuana. So he got in a lot of trouble. Since then, they don't have anything to do with us. So they wasn't coming in. So that leaves us to do the part that for 6 years we have been in total hell with this church, with the music. We went to call for records. How many times we have called PD, and it has been a lot of times. We don't call just to be calling. We know that they have lots of problems and probably more than what we have. But my son is a law enforcement officer, 30 years. He's with the Bullitt County Sheriff's Department. And we appreciate him so much, but we never call him. We call the PD officers. They're the ones that can tell us what to do. They can hear what's going on. But if we called my son, they would say it's favoritism. So we don't call him. We don't get him involved. So we are now working to get this church resolved. Compassion Church came in and they left. Okay. Their music was horrendous. They had loudspeakers everywhere, amps everywhere, and you couldn't hear nothing when you got in the parking lot. Or I say parking lot, the little pie-shaped house in front. I worked with this for several years, and one day I heard music in the back of my place next to my fence. I went out there and this young man was in a red sports car, and he had it so loud. I asked him to turn it down. He said I would. I said, well, he said, I work the controls in the church. I said, please turn it down. He said, I would. I went back home, and in a little while, I heard the music. I mean, it was horrendous. I went back out my gate, went into the church, and there he stood with the controls. Turned it louder and turned it louder. I just stood there. And after a while, he turned it down. I said, that was just what did I say? Hold on. Hold on just a minute. Anyway, he I'll find it. Anyway, I told him it was just disgraceful for us and the church. I said another word, but I'm sorry. But I told him that, and I turned around and walked out. I started feeling funny. I walked from the church to my gate, I kept feeling like I was going to be sick. I got to my courtyard. Then I got in my sunroom, which is an 8 by 20. My living room is a 20 by 28. And by the time I got to my living room, I fell on the floor. I was so sick, I crawled to my recliner. My heart started flopping. I could not believe what was happening. I was home alone. He worked at that time. This is in 2015, I believe. Come to find out, I was having atrial fib. I'm not supposed to have atrial fib because I have a aortic valve replacement. I take blood thinner. But my doctor documented it, that I do have atrial fib from music that is coming from the church into my house. Okay. This church moved away. The second church come in, which is Southbridge. Very nice church, but didn't have very much money. They couldn't pay the parking place. They didn't have the money for it. So the man that owned it, that bought it in 2008, well, I'm gonna put another used car lot there. I rented the building that is on the place to people that do body work, 24/7. Making a lot of noise, loud music in cars sitting on the property. Well, I told him, I said, I know where that music's coming from, I will call PD. Well, that didn't last long, they up and left because they were dealing. Okay? Southbridge could not pay it, so they had to leave. The next came another church, and this is a black church. I'm sorry, but this is a black church. They come in, and we met them, we talked to them, we said we was very upset about it because of what we've gone through before. He said the realtor told them that we were very upset about things that goes on, that they would try to help. That was on Saturday. On Sunday, they came in at 10 o'clock in the morning. They left at 6:30 in the afternoon. They had music all day. Hollering, screaming, whatever. This went on and on and on. And now we called another person, and this is Jeremy. This is Charles Penny, your city councilman. I related to him all my problems. He said, don't worry, I will take care of it. I didn't hear from him. I called. He said, I can't move them out. I said, why? I just can't move them out. I said, who did you talk to? Didn't talk to anybody. What music did you listen to? I didn't listen to anything. So we're here today to try to tell him that it is a problem with us. We got a little soundtrack we want to play you, if it's okay.
Powering on.
We don't know gadgets very well.
That's okay, me too.
Okay.
Ready to pair.
Ready? Play? Sorry. Is it on? I'll just take it off and put the mic up there. This is the gentleman preaching. He preaches for 2 or 3 hours at a time. And this.
Ready to pair.
Okay.
You
Hey, put it up there.
Yeah, just put it to the microphone.
can hear.
Put it to the microphone.
And this is recorded from your backyard?
No, this is in my house.
Inside the
Your
house.
house.
In my house. And this is another one. This is singing. This is music.
And that's inside of your home?
Yes.
And when we call PD, they have scanners. And by the time the PD gets to the place, they turn it off. So the PD can't tell what's going on. And we have
Ms.
called,
Dillon, did you say that the
a
church
lot of
has scanners?
That's what you said.
Pardon?
The church you're saying has scanners?
Yeah, they have a scanner, they have.
Well, they're monitoring the calls some way, because when we call, they'll turn it down.
Okay.
When the policemen get there, then there's no violation. When he leaves, they turn it back up.
Turn it back up. Sometimes there's somebody sitting
We don't know how they're
outside.
doing it, but they know somehow.
There's somebody sitting outside, and when they'll beat the horn too, and somebody will listen, and they'll turn it down.
Yeah.
See, we have in our backyard a 16 by 28 building that looks right over the church grounds. We can stand at our window and see what's going on. So if he's in the house calling PD, I stand there and I look and see what's, if they come up or what they're gonna do. And what did y'all do on Easter? Have a nice time? Well, we stood there and called PD and waited for them to come on because they were in there shouting and carrying on like this. And what did you do Mother's Day? Same thing we did. We called PD.
I want to first apologize to you because that is my district, and I do believe that no one that lives anywhere should be uncomfortable with loud noises. And I also want to apologize because when you did talk to Councilman Boyum, he did forward the email to me, and just with the whole coronavirus going on, it slipped away from me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just ask you if you would allow me to get staff to go to the church and talk to them to see if it can be some
I don't
type
want
of.
to do that. I want it resolved because.
Right, that's why I'm saying if we can go to the church to talk to them to see if we can come to some
They
type
need a
of.
place, 4 acres out. They need a place to go where they don't have to be disturbed by us or by PD coming. They need to be someplace where they can let go and save people. My husband and I worked for 10 years in the church in Tennessee. He went to seminary, became a pastor for 10 years. We know what it is, but this is not right for us. It's not right.
Councilman Boyum, were you here when they first complained and you said 2014? Do you remember what kind of actions was taken? Maybe we can model.
Well, all I can say is Cornerstone was the first one, right? Cornerstone?
What's that?
Cornerstone was the first church, right?
No, Compassion Church.
Compassion, I'm sorry. Third of the C.
See, Compassion Church is affiliated with Savannah Christian.
Yeah, so
They came up
Compassion
here.
and then it
They
was,
had money. They got money.
it was Southbridge.
Yeah, and then Southbridge
both
was
of
very
those
nice.
were-
I have nothing to say about Southbridge. They did have a lot loud music, but they got burned by not having a place to park.
That's right.
That's the reason they left.
And both of them, from what I understand, use that facility as more of a temporary church.
Yes,
Both
they were
Compassion
built,
Church built the church in
the
Southbridge.
Compassion Church built out on Kawana Road, out by the college where Connection
I'm not-
Church
I'm
is.
not
I
sure
just
when it
wanna
was
see
rezoned.
when you guys came and when they came to complain, do you remember?
What, I'm sorry?
When, you said in 2014, you also came before council.
Yeah,
About the
well,
other churches,
Mayor
like
Moore, Mayor Moore was in, and we had a problem with them parking all over Stillwell. So
Wasn't
she
the
did,
noises, the parking.
she did put the signs up for us, but she sent us to a meeting with the attorney and a PD officer and the councilman at that time, I forget his name, and the affiliates with the church and us. And there was nothing resolved. What we were asking at that time when Compassion Church was here, they were starting at 7 o'clock in the morning with their music. They were so loud they was trying to wake up Brooklet. You think I'm kidding? No, I'm not kidding. Really, I appreciate you laughing at me, but they did. And it was horrific. And we called PD. We called them to come over. We had a gentleman to come that did the same thing as Sergeant Bert at that time, Woodruff. And he sat in my courtyard and said, well, I thought it was the other way around, that you wasn't supposed to bother them. But I think he went to Texas. But he didn't do anything for us.
I want us to be able to come to some type of agreement that will help both of us out, or each party out.
help us out is
Yes, sir.
for them to shut it down.
Yeah, Ms. Deal, how often is this occurring a week?
Pardon?
How often is this occurring a week?
They went 9 days,
Well,
they
well-
went 9 nights, they went 9 nights with this. They started May the 2nd, and they didn't stop until this past Sunday. Whenever the stay inside came on, they went out with their band and filled it up with people, shoulder to shoulder, and took them in that church and sat for 5 hours. I don't know what they did, but they sat for 5 hours. And then come back out and got that band and took them home.
Okay. and
That
so-
one staying away, you know.
Okay, so typically, outside of that 9-day period, does this happen once a week, twice a week?
This happens every other night,
Almost every other day.
every other day.
There's somebody there every day,
But
but they're having a meeting almost every other day, like 4 or 5
Sunday,
times a week.
Sunday will go to 4 or 5 hours. Monday, Wednesday, they have a prayer meeting. They go from 7:30 or 8:30 to maybe 12 o'clock at night. They're not supposed to be there at 11. And sometime on Friday, sometime on Saturday, and always on Sunday. There's no set time, she says.
So, Ms. Deal, just as a point of clarity, this is gonna have to be something that we just gonna have to figure out. We're not gonna be able to give you a resolution today.
Well, I hope you can.
Yeah, but what we can do is let us put our heads together. And what I want to ask is that you leave your information with Leah.
Okay.
Let us kind of.
If you can read it, I'm sorry.
But let us kind of figure it out. We're gonna have to think through this. We're not gonna get a resolution tonight, but let us think through it. We'll work with chief, we'll work with zoning.
They just need a place. They just need.
Yeah.
There will never be another church there.
Yeah.
There will never be another church there
Well, we
because
don't
there
think
is.
it will be, because that's one of the reasons we're here, is to ask you to rethink the parking thing.
Oh.
Now, I don't know what the ordinances say, but I think it's a certain amount of parking a church has to have according to the city ordinances that they don't have anymore.
Okay.
So it can't, from that perspective, it can't be used as a church.
Okay. So let us get our
So-
team on it and kind of take a look at it.
We appreciate it.
Because we're gonna have to look and see, because at the end of the day, we gotta figure out how we can navigate this. Because I know it's gotta be totally uncomfortable for you guys.
Oh.
Because you're looking to find some peace.
Listen, and when the Compassion Church were there, he worked, and I would stay up to 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. They would be there. It was college students. I said, "Why are you there at 1 o'clock?" Well, I hated to move them out. I hated to make them go.
Yeah.
That was Compassion Church, and 11 o'clock was the curfew.
Yeah.
9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, but they were starting at 7 o'clock in the morning with the music.
Yeah.
7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. And I hate to hear.
The letter from the attorney plainly says 9 to 11. They didn't comply with that. They didn't care. They went ahead and done it at 7 o'clock.
Yeah. I hate to hear that. Well, we'll definitely get on it.
Okay.
And then kind of go from there. If you will, Liv, if you'll get their information.
We appreciate it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry none of our neighbors are with us, but
That,
a lot of those, some of those are rental folks, college students and all, and then the other one we're talking about, the older fella, he doesn't want to get involved with it.
Yeah, and that-
You know,
yeah.
that's kind of the story, you know.
yeah.
But we appreciate y'all letting us come in here and
We appreciate y'all coming.
hope you can do something to help us.
Mr. D, did y'all come in years ago complaining about the noise from the club over there?
Oh,
Yes, we complained
I
about
did,
that too.
I did.
Yeah.
And you know what happened? It was coming out the back of the building. Nobody knew it. Nobody wouldn't look behind the building that the music was coming out.
Probably
And
ignored one.
a police officer came and went around the back.
You know what
And
they-
found it.
What they'd do, they'd turn the music up real loud, but the front doors would be shut. You couldn't hear it from the front.
No.
But the back doors, like the kitchen and all that back there, they'd leave the back door open, it came right up back into our house. You know,
our house sits on a knoll, no.
And it was kind of downhill from our house, so it was just
The
like.
building is like this, so it's coming up this way.
Right.
Yeah,
Wow.
Is Walter your
I won't
son?
cut my knoll down, but
Anyway, we called the police enough, well, finally, one of them went around to the back of the building and found the door.
and they came right
Found
on
where it
and
was
told
coming
us,
from.
I could have hugged his neck, I'm telling you what.
Well,
I love my police officers.
Well, we got that
They are
one resolved,
wonderful.
Yeah.
we'll work on this one.
Thank you
We
so
appreciate
much.
it.
All right.
Is,
Have a
Walter,
good night.
is Walter
Have
your
a good night.
son?
No, Jody.
Jody.
Jody
okay.
Deal.
Jody Deal.
Sorry.
He's my number one, I got 3 boys.
He lived
He's
there
one.
with County about 30 years now.
30 years he is.
We
He's a
appreciate y'all
He's
listening.
a grandpa and I'm a great grandma.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good night.
So long, y'all.
All right.
Have a good night.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 20. Consideration of a motion to enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters, real estate, and/or potential litigation. We do have a need for that this evening, so I'd like to ask for a vote, a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor? All right. All right, and